I'm right here next to a Dutch World War II memorial. On this very spot, 5 brave resistance fighters were shot and killed by the German occupier on the April 10th, 1945. What made it even more tragic was that they were killed 1 hour before the city of Deventer was liberated. This here is the tragic story of the Twentol tragedy. Keep watching. So Deventer did not see much damage during the German invasion of the Netherlands, but would see much destruction in the latter stages of World War II. Between early 1944 and early 1945, 15 Allied bombing raids occurred. In the fall of 1944, Deventer's railroad bridge was a prime target for the Allies, but strong German anti-aircraft defenses made it necessary to drop the bombs from high altitude, and as a result the bridge was not damaged. The city center, however, was severely. The devastation in the city and the accompanying suffering were of unprecedented proportions. The bombings killed 154 people. Most of them were elderly people from the completely destroyed downtown retirement homes. On February 6, 1945, 10 a.m., the first formation of 30 Mitchell bombers strafed Deventer from the southwest, and the second formation of 12 Mitchells would deliver the final blow for the center. Deventer was liberated in the last months of World War II in Europe. See, the Allies had initially planned to push through the Netherlands, cross the bridges near Arnhem and then into Germany. But as we know, Operation Market Garden failed. Yes, Eindhoven and Nijmegen were liberated, but Arnhem was not, and thus the war's end was postponed. Eventually the Allies crossed the Rhine River into Germany and from Germany back into the Netherlands. The Canadians arrived at Duisburg on April 3rd and pushed into Zutphen on April 8th. On April 10th, 1945, when Deventer faced freedom, one last tragedy would occur. As was often the case, the Dutch resistance assisted the Allies in liberating key positions. Now, sometimes they played a crucial role, other times they just piggybacked on the success of the Allied soldiers. Now, the Dutch resistance in Deventer mostly consisted of young students from the Colonial Agricultural School. The moment, early April 1945, the Canadian troops approached Deventer, a resistance group of 8 people led by Jan van Gennep took position in the Twentol Lubricating Industry's warehouse. Now, their goal was to secure the bridge across the Overijssel Canal, because they assumed that the Canadians would enter Deventer from the Zutphen side. Now, in the morning of April 10th, a group made a tour through the building and they encountered a German soldier. What followed was a scuffle and a shot was fired, yet nobody was hit. And eventually Gerard Verhoeven, he managed to overpower the German. Now, the German soldier, who was a corporal actually, he begged for his life, and Verhoeven, he let him go. The soldier promised he would not tell anything to the other German troops. So the German corporal was allowed to leave, and Verhoeven himself, he also fled the scene because he was afraid that the Germans would discover his fellow resistance fighters, and thus he hoped it would spare them of an ordeal. However, this was not the case, because shortly after, a group of German soldiers arrived at the factory, and what followed was a gunfight between the resistance fighters and the German soldiers. The Germans, they set fire to the building. The leader of the group, Jan Hendrik Louis van Gennep Luurs, was killed by the fire of the besiegers soon after the attack began. Around noon, the German soldiers managed to enter the factory. Local residents saw how 4 men and 1 woman were dragged outside. Under armed supervision, they were taken to the playground of the Hoornwerk. On the spot, the 4 men and the woman, they were told they would be executed. It would later turn out that not only Van Gennep Luurs was killed in the fighting at the factory, but also Jan Dirk Bruggeman. His charred body was found in the ruins later. What happened after this was observed by Cor Bats, a 12-year-old Dutch boy who watched everything happening from his attic window. And he recalled, "The resistance fighters were shot like rabbits. You will never forget something like that. I was stupid to stand and watch everything. Why? I was probably just curious. I had to watch." But the 12-year-old Dutch boy also saw somebody else being shot and killed. A German NCO, a medic to be precisely. Well, he was designated for the firing squad, but he firmly rejected to take part in this. He was a medic after all. The commander then took out his pistol and he took the soldier behind the wall and shot him at point blank range. His name was Ernst Grauer. Cor, the 12-year-old boy, recalled. I still envision how the poor man's body was carried away on a wheelbarrow crossing in front of the 5 prisoners. In a war you grow up quickly, but I never saw people being shot. The exact course of things fades with age. But you never forget the shots and the falling people. The commander walked by checking for a mercy shot. Then the Germans marched away and left the victims where they fell down. 2 of the victims, Joost Westland van Balen and Corrie Bos, were recently married. One victim, the student Harry Engels, turned out to be alive. He still moved an arm, and the nearby residents, they noticed this. So they took up his body and tried to get him to a hospital. But on the way, he died. And shortly after this, the Canadians entered Deventer, and Deventer was liberated. It's a very wry scene, seeing death shortly before your city's liberation. What makes it even more wry is that the intended action of the resistance was totally unnecessary, as the Canadians entered the city from the other side. If you want to learn about the Allied liberations of other Dutch cities, click here to watch my video about the liberation of Maastricht, and I also made a video about the liberation of Tilburg. Thanks for watching, bye for now.